you ever considered that we are living in a unique time, that something world-changing is about to happen, and that it might concern you? If so, you're in the right place. Keep listening, and you'll hear thought-provoking views behind the news that point to a new and better future for all. Many people now sense that humanity is not alone. So consider this. If the Christ or the Buddha walked among us today as modern men, would we recognize them? What would they be saying? And most importantly, would we listen? Every Sunday on this program, Share International Radio will examine extraordinary events that are unfolding behind the headline news. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. And now, welcome to this week's show.
This is Diana Gold-Holland, your host for this week. And our special guest today is Laurie McGowan, who hails from the small province of Nova Scotia here in Canada. Laurie is a boat designer and community volunteer in this tiny town of Annapolis Royal, and he's been active in many, many areas in his community: the environment, political reform, social justice, youth sport, and he's also a student of the Ageless Wisdom teaching that we cover a lot on our program, especially those explained by British author Benjamin Creme, who is the source of much of the information that we present. For those who may be hearing for the first time, this is author Benjamin Creme, C-R-E-M-E. But now let's get to the reason for today's call. Laurie is the chair of a refugee sponsoring group called ARCARE, capital A-R-C-A-R, small e. This in the historic town of Annapolis Royal. And the acronym stands for Annapolis Royal Community Assisting Relocation. And yes, it is a refugee sponsorship program unfolding here in Canada. So welcome, Laurie. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. I hope you're not being pounded out too much by these storms that we're hearing about in Nova Scotia, and that the power doesn't go out on us.
Yeah, that would be nice. It did go out yesterday, but it's good today.
Okay, that's good. So, Laurie, as everyone knows and sees day to day, our TV screens are full of images and reports of massive relocation of refugees, very much focused in Europe now, but still basically all over the world. And we remember that Jesus himself was a refugee in the time of King Herod.
Yes.
Yeah. And yet, you have found that the official United Nations definition of refugee is surprisingly narrow. Why don't you tell us about that to begin our program?
Yeah, okay. I'd be glad to. In 1951, countries signed on to the UN Convention on Refugees, and they listed 30 reasons, what defined a refugee and why they could be considered one. And it always entails in being outside the country. So, from political to wars to all kinds of different reasons. But not included in that, especially today, are people who had to flee their homes, basically, because of environmental changes, because of droughts and floods and things like that, or flooding along the coast. As well, internally displaced people. Right now, there are approximately 16 million people on Earth who are refugees or considered refugees, and they're outside their country. But within all these countries, most of the countries on Earth, there are refugees, even coming from the U.S. and Canada. But not included in this definition of the refugee are internally displaced people, or people who have lost everything. They're living in camps or living on the streets. They've lost their communities, family members, their livelihood, but they're still somehow surviving within the country that's causing them so much trouble. So when you think of today, Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and Turkey even, countries in the Middle East, there are people within those countries who have fled them, but there are people who are still within the country that face the same thing.
Right.
And the third group that really isn't covered that well are whistleblowers, people like Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, who some countries believe are criminals and are just being harbored by other countries for political reasons, but they themselves believe what they did was a moral and a just thing, was letting people know just how much corruption is going on, especially in terms of privacy.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But that still takes them away from their own countries, their own families, their own culture, their own roots.
Yes.
Yeah. And, when we add, for example, all the orphaned children, the AIDS victims, or the children of AIDS victims throughout Africa that have no one to take care of them.
Yeah.
And when we add all the people that have to go and work somewhere else,
yes,
and cannot be with their families, it's just a staggering number of people
enormous.
in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. They're labeled as economic migrants, but many of these people are basically refugees. When they leave their countries, they're putting everything on the line to get somewhere else. And most of our ancestors, most of our listeners today will be living somewhere pretty nice because their ancestors or some of their ancestors were economic migrants. And today the doors are being slammed like crazy, especially with the waves of refugees that are leaving North Africa and the Middle East. But they're not the only countries.
Right.
And still, they're the ones that are getting all the media right now, but the coverage.
Well, when they're migrating a million strong a year, and the trend growing into Germany alone, that bodes coverage. Let's welcome our listeners to go to our Facebook page, Share on the Air Radio, which has some pretty revealing statistics. I was absolutely shocked to find out, Lori, from the research you sent me, that 1 in 482 people is a refugee, world population-wise.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And when you look on that list of the different countries, the numbers, some of the people, the countries that are making the most noise, when you finally see the number of refugees per capita, it's not that high. But a country, for example, Lebanon, right in the middle of the wars in the Middle East, today 1 in 4 people is a refugee in Lebanon. And in 2 years, 1 in 3, a third of the population will be a refugee there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not including those that are internally displaced, as you were mentioning.
Yes. Yeah.
So, just before we go to break, tell us about the Kurdi story that got started on our care.
Yeah. All right. Well, for us, actually, for a lot of people, this little boy affected a lot of people. He was 3-year-old. His family is actually trying to emigrate to Canada, to Vancouver, your town. And but our then government denied their application, and so they migrated. They tried to migrate to Europe, but they were on a boat that flipped, and this little boy, Alan Kurdi, died. He drowned, and the pictures of him on a Turkish beach, they're really heart-wrenching. He's so tiny and so fragile, and for me in particular, I remember our son at 3, and he's so full of hope and fun and everything. And that really moved me, and I've since found out it moved a lot of people. And maybe you've seen it, just the view from behind of him on the beach lying face down. Very sad.
Yeah, it is one of those iconic pictures that come along once every half century or so.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is, in his death, he's probably accomplished more good. He stirred more people to move. Just that one image in particular of him on the beach. And certainly that's what happened to our group. That's how ours started. And, We followed the lead of another town, another group, a village right next to ours, that had brought in a family of four, a mother and four daughters. They were Iraqi, and they had fled through Syria and got to Turkey. And how they did it and the response of the community was just overwhelming. It was incredible. And if everyone saw that, they saw the image of the little boy and put two and two together and realized we can do this. And so the response in Canada, especially rural Canada, but eastern Canada, the Maritimes, we call it, including Nova Scotia, has been overwhelming. The number of groups is really incredible.
Well, it kind of relates to that saying, if you have enough, you share, but if you have too much, you want more.
That's exactly right. Statistically, again and again, it's shown in Canada, and I'm sure it's the same around the world, that per capita, the poorer people give more to others, and it's definitely the case here. And so we live in an area that's one of the poorest areas of Canada, and Nova Scotia has a population of less than 1 million people, fewer than Rhode Island, for example. But there are over 80 refugee sponsoring groups in the province. So if you can imagine 80 refugee sponsoring groups in a place like Rhode Island, it would be pretty incredible. Anyway, so all these little villages around the edge of the province are sponsoring refugees, and it's really heartening.
Yeah. Laurie, we'll talk about your village's activity when we come back on the other side of the break.
Okay.
Stay with us, please, listening audience. You're listening to Share on the Air Radio, and we'll be back soon.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Want to help build the coming golden age? Want to experience the Aquarian energies of love, light, and power? Transmission meditation is a simple way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and accelerate your own spiritual growth at the same time. Check out transmission meditation at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello?
Oops. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty there. Oh dear. So we're back on Share on the Air Radio, thought-provoking views behind the news. And here we have Laurie McGowan to tell us about the story of his town's relocation effort with the refugees today. Take it away, Laurie. How did it get started? How's it going?
Well, thanks. Actually, I'll give you a little background about the province. Nova Scotia, as I mentioned, has fewer than 1 million people, and half the population lives around the one city, which is Halifax, and there are lots of little towns and lots of little villages, and Annapolis Royal is one of those little towns. It's very historic. It's the oldest permanently settled European town in Canada, the second oldest town in North America, and it had been the capital of Nova Scotia until the mid-1700s. But all the young people have left. Like so many places, the young people have gone to where the money is, and it's definitely not here. And what's happened is our town has aged quite a lot. There are a lot of people who have moved here because it's quite a unique place. There's a big artist community, and the housing is very unique. It's very old and historic, and so people have moved in from all over, but they're quite old. And so out of this, I saw, as I had mentioned before, the Alan Kurdi image, and then I read about the Village of Paradise, the Baptist church there, and how they had sponsored a refugee family. And just after reading that, all it took was me writing to a friend an email, "Can we do this?" And he said, "Oh, no problem, I'll set up a meeting." And it didn't have to be me. It just happened to be me. Everyone was ready. And so we had a meeting, and then another meeting, and, you know, if you consider the town as a huge population of 440 people, we had a meeting of 40 people, and out of that, most of them signed up to help. And we formed a core group, and just from that's all it took. And within a very short time, we had raised, we realized we were aiming for a family of about 8. And in a very short while, we had raised enough money for a government-sponsored program where the government pays for half and we pay the other half. We were halfway there to our half for a family of 8, and in no time at all, we also had a house that could take 9 to 11 people, and we raised all the money that we needed to sponsor a family for a year.
Now, Laurie, that's pretty remarkable, because I don't think you're actually swimming in cash in your neck of the woods.
No, not at all.
So
no.
how did you raise this money?
It was really incredible. All kinds of first direct appeals. People who wrote down that they would like to volunteer. They were asked first right off the bat, would you pony up and give some money? And just like that, we raised thousands. And then the first real fundraiser was, do you remember the UNICEF Halloween boxes?
Yeah, where the kiddies went around and collected pennies. That's right.
Yeah, I think it's still done in the States, but it's not done in Canada anymore, and I don't know why. It's a real loss. If anything, a teaching tool is gone. But anyway, a Halloween box program was started, and the Social Issues Club of the local little high school, decided to take it on as an issue, and so between the high school and the grade school and the people in the community, $1,300 was raised just with coins, which is really incredible. And from that, there's been almost something every week or two, from bake sales to walkathons and concerts. And one of the funnest ones was a hot chocolate and cookie sale by a couple little kids, 5-year-old kids. They wanted to do something because they were really looking forward to getting new kids in the town. Remember, it's an old town. New kids is a big thing. Anyway, so at the open air skating rink 2 weekends ago, there was a fundraiser to raise money for our care, and these little kids and their parents, and I described to you what it looked like. It was like a bunch of chickadees at the feeder, because it's a very small rink, and there were lots of kids, and so if you can imagine chickadees with skates on and helmets, that's pretty much the picture, and on a sugar rush as well. But anyway, they raised almost $800 just like that,
and this has the little kids involved too. How are they? Yeah. How are they? What's their view on all of this?
Well, they realize that when I first went and spoke with the grade school about refugees, and I asked them, "Do you know what they are?" The older kids put up their hands, but the younger kids didn't have any idea. But they've since been educated by the teachers, and especially through the Halloween collection boxes. But this little group of kids, they realize that these kids are going to be moving from a very tough place. In our case, it's going to be Syrians. We know that, and they will have very little. But they're really looking forward to showing them on the bus, getting them on the school bus, and pointing out things in the town, and getting to the school and showing them the ropes, basically, at school, which is really cool.
I think when you first told me about this and explaining the refugees to the little kids, that they couldn't understand, they couldn't comprehend that somebody wouldn't have a home, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have a roof over their heads.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine being a 4 or 5 year old kid. That really is pretty startling, isn't it?
Oh, it was some of the expressions. When I told them that, they've lost some family members, they've lost their homes, they've had to run away, imagine having to run away from this town, and they looked really scared. Some of them, maybe I shouldn't have taught in that way, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting at the skating was the local editor of the newspaper. He had been active in bringing in some Kosovars in the 1970s and 1990s. And he said it changed his life forever. What the group of people did really changed his life. And he looked, as he was talking to me about this, he was actually interviewing me, but he was looking at the little kids, and he was tearing up, and he said, "Those kids, we have no idea how that's going to affect them. Right now, from this age, they've got such a start, and it's really neat."
Well, I'm sure a lot of them are looking forward to some new buddies to play with too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because that's kids. They
yeah.
and integrating and whatnot. So speaking of this media person, what's the general media reaction been? How's it being reported? What are they saying?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. From the local media to provincial and national. The whole program across the country. What happened? We had an election in the fall, and we got a new government. Justin Trudeau is our new prime minister. He's the son of our well-liked Pierre Elliott Trudeau from the 70s and early 80s. So we've got a father-son prime minister team, and both of them were known for their saying and doing what they really felt was important. And we just came through 9 years of a very horrible right-wing government where social programs were hammered on and pro-polluting industry was favored over, society in general. But so when Trudeau came in, he announced that, we're going to bring in 25,000 Syrian refugees. And they had no idea what they did. Basically, the country exploded. All these groups formed, and it booted the door down, and the government is completely unprepared for this response. They cannot handle the load, the demand. And so the media has also been fantastic. They're covering the story. They're covering what's happening to the people in the country, what's happening when they're arriving, and the coverage is really fair. It's good, and it's not at all painted as a dangerous them coming into our country to sully our clean water. So,
right, which is unfortunately starting, well, not only starting, but getting more and more serious in Europe. I was hearing today that Angela Merkel in Germany, with her open door policy to refugees, is coming up against a lot of flack, and people are, there's starting to be a real backlash about that. Now, she has reported that, when the trouble dies down in those areas of the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria, that those refugees will be expected to go home.
Yeah.
And according to statistics, when another great wave of this happened, in the Kosovars and other Eastern European refugees in the 90s, more than 75% of those people have repatriated. So it's not, that is not a long stretch of the imagination, but still, times are pretty tense there. So I'm glad to hear that there's a more welcoming attitude here and more sharing. You mentioned to me that the goal for your group is not Canadianization, but simply to get these people out of harm's way.
Yeah, number one is to get them out. Chances are most of the people that come to rural towns are going to go someplace in the city where there's already a Syrian community. We don't have anything like that here. We think they'll like it here, but basically their views on their life and how they live, their religion are sacred. Whatever they want to do is theirs to do.
Welcome to Canada.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Share International Magazine is unique in the world today. It draws connections that make sense between headline news and spiritual changes unfolding now on a global scale, and explains the forces driving those changes. It may be the message of hope you have been waiting for. Investigate for yourself at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org. Shareontheairradio.org.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she is feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, listeners. You're with Diana Gold Holland here on Share on the Air Radio. My guest today, Laurie McGowan, on the refugee program his town is handling in rural Nova Scotia. As you know, we have a certain premise on our show, and that is that at this very crucial time in human history, we are not alone. that we actually have the help of great teachers, perfected men, masters of wisdom, and at their head stands the Lord Maitreya. That's Maitreya for people new to this information. And we contend that these masters are here to help us solve our problems. They can advise and counsel us and show us the way and what we can be doing to help save the world at this time. And that literally they walk among us now. Now, normally when we interview co-workers or guests, we talk about their experience and what got them into the work of making known this news that we are doing on this radio show, and what their experience has been. So I'm very happy to have Laurie fill us in on some of his own experience of Maitreya and the reappearance of these great teachers. Okay. Laurie, give us your story.
All right. Well, this is interesting. So I'll tie it into as well some of the media coverage. You asked about media coverage, and it's really important what's going on in Europe. Unfortunately, there's some really xenophobic media that are painting the picture in a very bad light and, blowing things up. And it's, the pace of migration in Europe is really high, and there's no doubt it's a problem, but it's being the fans of, discord are being waved by or heated up by media quite often. But here we had good coverage by the CBC, our national media, which is really interesting. But I'll give a chronological order. What happened in 1985? I had helped deliver a sailboat from the state of Maine down to the Caribbean, and I hitchhiked back up from Miami up to Maine and eventually to Montreal. But it was a terrible trip. I wasn't dressed correctly, and it was mid-December by the time I got to New London, Connecticut, and got let off on the side of the road at night. It was dark and snow everywhere, and I had my sneakers on and a jean jacket, and realized, I'm in trouble. And so I went into the woods, and I looked for a place to set up camp, basically, with my sleeping bag. And I tried a couple spots, and it didn't work. And I was just walking along over a berm beside the highway, and I saw this little tree. It was a little spruce. And it was about 5 feet tall. There's a little opening in the side of it. About 8 feet tall, an opening in the side of it. And there was a blue light coming from it, like a light blue light. It was the strangest thing. And so I looked at it, and I realized I could fit right inside this opening, like arms around me. And so I got inside my sleeping bag, and I pulled the hood over the top, and I sat down cross-legged and just sat there and slept absolutely like a baby for 8 hours. And I woke up completely refreshed, not an ache, not a pain. And it was years later that Benjamin Krem's master confirmed that the Master Jesus had helped me at that time. And so I call that the blue spruce.
Just to fill people in, the Masters of Wisdom are working with various people throughout the world, and Benjamin Krem, who has given out 16 books now of information about Maitreya and his mission. Benjamin Krem, who is sometimes considered the Ben the Baptist, announcing the second coming of the Christ, who is Maitreya at this time, but also the world teacher for any and all religions expecting the return of their great one, and also for those of no religion at all. Benjamin Krem gets much of his information telepathically from a Master of Wisdom that he works directly with. And this Master of Wisdom is one of the senior disciples of the Lord Maitreya himself, who's at the head of these masters who are here now to help us. I just wanted to throw that clarification in. Laurie, people are welcome to go to Share International Magazine, and the URL for that is share, SHARE -international.org. And all of the background is there, and it's hours and hours of most incredible research that you will stumble upon there in this whole story of the reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of the Wisdom. So back to your story.
Okay, well,
Right.
Thanks. Yeah, you described that really well. And so what's happening is that people are having interactions with some of the Masters of Wisdom, especially Jesus and Maitreya. And quite often they're really funny. These guys have a sense of humor.
They certainly do, and I would remind our readers, our listeners, that in Share International Magazine, for many years now, there's been a monthly column called Letters to the Editor. And these are letters that come in from all over the world. Mr. Krem has spoken quite extensively since the late 70s by invitation in many, many countries in the world. He is now getting a little older, so he has had to curtail his travels in the last 2 or 3 years. But up until then, he spoke regularly in Europe, in Japan, in the States, and even in Canada. Always by invitation to tell his remarkable story. And why did I get onto that? Oh, yes, because this is how letters would come into Share International Magazine, of which he is chief editor, and people can just go there for a feast of very touching encounters that affect people quite differently. It's
They're
wonderful.
Always,
yeah,
they do, and they always affect people in the right way at the right time. It's really interesting.
Right. And they're carried monthly in Share International Magazine. So head on out to the website and check out. There's an abridged version of the magazine that comes out 10 times a year online, and there's always a collection of those stories in that abridgment. So, yeah. Okay, so to continue, Laurie.
Okay, well, then I'll go to the media bit. The CBC, they had a really good radio program that you had something to do with called Ideas. It's still going on. They had a 2-part one about Maitreya, and it was amazing. I had never heard this information before. This was in 1991, and we moved to Annapolis Royal that year, actually, and it was in 1994 that I had this incredible dream where all of a sudden, right in front of my face, someone, a pure white being, said to me, "I'm here to teach you about nature. My name is," he said his name, and I woke up, I jumped up out of bed, absolutely startled, and scared my wife, and I'm looking around for something to write down the name. I said it over and over in my head. There was no pencil around or paper, and so I just lay down and okay, I'll remember this in the morning, and sure enough, I didn't remember the name. I had no idea what the name was, but anyway, I wrote to Benjamin Krem as well, and he said it was the Lord Maitreya, and his message was really simple. It was, "I'm here to teach you about nature," and I knew immediately he meant human nature, but at the same time, our place in nature, the whole natural world, and so it was amazing, and that's really what his mission has been, to show us our true nature. Is there's no separation between us, and so that was really good. And back to the CBC, one of their, I'll just throw this in here so your listeners can hear this. There was a recording that I remember when it came on, I jumped up. I was like, "That's him! How many hints does he have to drop?" It was a woman who has a storyteller. Her name's Sage Turtle in Toronto, and she recorded this old man on the subway in Toronto, and he was hilarious. He was really, really funny, and he was telling people to lighten up, stay healthy, and look at me, Elvis Presley died at 40. You should have lived to 100. Look at me, I'm 80. And anyway, at the end, you hear his voice, and I think it's the first recording we do hear his voice, and it was really neat directly, and it's very funny as well, because he tells people to lighten up and go have a beer and move to Vancouver, like they do in Vancouver. They're too uptight in Toronto.
Uh-huh. That lady's turtle is Sage Turtle. The Tyrtle is her last name, and we will get the link to that recording of Maitreya at that time. We'll put the link on our Facebook page, Share on the Air Radio North America. And if possible, we'll try to see if we can get it added on to the end of this interview that we're having now. OMTimes Radio may be able to do that and just tack it on at the end. If not, we'll certainly have that link up and people can go and listen to that podcast. We thank Sage for letting us use that. And, again, this is just one appearance of Maitreya in this instance, but there are many, many stories. He often appears to people who are, who need a little boost in self-confidence or are depressed in the service work that they are trying to do and need to have that confidence restored. He and several other masters also sometimes appear to people to put them face to face with their own prejudices. For example, people who, are against drinking or smoking or homelessness or things like that. Very, very often these masters appear in the guise of homeless people.
That's a really good segue, actually, because he encourages us to raise the bar a little bit. To actually move on something, to help out, to share and save the world, basically.
Absolutely. They don't waste a minute. They don't waste an occasion. So There's always a message in it.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Share on the Air Radio.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Want to help humanity and the planet? Transmission meditation is a simple but powerful way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and dramatically accelerate your own spiritual growth. You can read the book on transmission meditation free online. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to ShareOnTheAirRadio.org, we are affiliated with Share International Magazine, where you can go to find quite a lot of background to any of the ideas which may be intriguing you here today on our call. Laurie, I wanted to get in this final segment, another very important point that we want to cover, and that is how the refugee issue is something right for this time in human evolution.
Yes, I think it's perfect, actually. And I don't mean that as, like, perfect, this is great. I mean it as it's a perfect example of cause and effect, where everything we've done has made this situation, and how we react, how we deal with it, is whether we survive or not. And it's part of the decisions we have to make right now. And they're stark decisions. They're black or white. There's no gray area in them. And anyway, for example, are making wars all over the place. Well, it makes refugees. That's the cause. That's the effect.
That's right. Refugees are made, not born.
Exactly. That's right. They didn't come into this world to become a refugee or to die of starvation or whatever. It's usually a political failure at an enormous level that has led to this. And
yeah, absolutely. You know, when I hear people say, "Well, the people starving in Africa, etc., that's their karma."
Yeah.
That nobody comes into the world to starve.
No, not at all.
Or to be a refugee.
We have enough. We have enough to share, and it's shown time and again that we do. And so when you see groups who do, especially in Europe right now, that are really under pressure, the groups of people that are coming out and counter-protesting or counter-rallying, saying to the refugees, "Come on in, we can handle this," and it's really great. If I could correct something, I had the definition of a refugee is very simple. It describes someone who cannot return to their home for fear of. They list a few things, but we were going to get on the 30 articles of the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights, and so within those 30 articles are Maitreya's priorities. Basically, they're laid out very simply, and.
Well, we can also lay them out very, very simply for our listeners in one or two sentences.
Yep.
Maitreya's priorities are food, shelter, education, and health care for everyone on this planet.
Yep.
It's as simple as that.
Yep.
And he has laid out the way that we can do it, and that is simply share and save the world.
Yes.
Nothing else has worked.
Yep. And
so,
I was telling you about a professor at a university here he's been studying altruism, which is basically sharing, and how it works and what it does. And on the individual level, basically we all have a bar. We try to reach it or we try to ignore it, whatever. And at some point we say yes to something, to helping. And if we've done it a few times, it's easier. If we've never done it before, the first time is a little, I'm not sure if I can help. And anyway, when people do it, it results in a personal growth, much like that editor of the newspaper looking at the little kids who couldn't believe they're starting at this young age to be doing this. And when a bunch of individuals do it, and refugee work is in Canada, refugee sponsorship is always group work. It has to be done by groups. It's not by individuals. The growth to the whole community is incredible. The personal growth is one thing, but the strengthening of the community, the mixing of all the ages. We've had this basically an old, very layered community is now all mixed up. The kids and the older people and young people. It's really interesting. And there's a town in Italy that they lost a lot of their young people, and they decided to welcome refugees. And the mayor actually took Pope Francis's words of Jesus was a refugee. You don't know. Maybe one of those people is Jesus. And so he took that to heart, and he welcomed refugees and rebuilt the town, basically. They're able to stay in homes that were abandoned for a year and try to set up businesses, try to settle in and live in communities to begin with. And it's rebuilt the town. It's really neat to see.
And so the takeaway point for listeners, on the altruism front is that there's just every action counts. Nothing is too small.
That's right. Yeah, it's not. You don't have to think big. I have to do something that's going to change the world. No, it starts right where you are, and you can say yes to helping someone. Someone may never know that you helped them out. It's something that basically makes the world go around. And it's the tool to save the world's problems right now.
Right, and the concept of paying it forward too brings us to our oneness. But we do have to give credit to this time in human evolution is another wave of migration. The history of humanity is nothing but the history of migration. And there have always been immigrants and refugees in all walks of life, and they have been responsible for starting the next wave of prosperity and usually better homes and peace in their new country. Usually, and the states south of us and our country were literally born of refugees.
Yeah. That's what statistically, that's what it shows. And the problem right now is the pace of arrival. Within the states, not too many refugees actually show up, but there are a lot of undocumented migrants, over 11 million, which is about 3%. But that's not the same. The number of refugees that come into the states is actually quite small. But what they bring to the country is really great. Not just a mosaic of, culturally, but these are people who want to make something of their new country, their new world, and it's really neat.
Right, and the perverse thing is that as we've seen these lineups of these people trudging for literally thousands of miles overland to reach these new countries. And, here's the scuttlebutt that they're actually being blamed for the terror and the war and all of these things that they're trying to escape.
Oh, yeah. That's really terrible. We don't hear too much bad press here, but every now and then someone will mumble something like that they are the terrorists coming into our country. No way. They've been approved on the other end. They're living in horrid conditions in camps. Families with children, especially right now in Europe, there are approximately 10,000 underage migrants, so the unaccompanied children, basically, who have disappeared. They've fallen prey to sex traffickers and basically a slave trade in Europe. And to point at them and say, you guys, go back to your country that's falling apart or is in the middle of a war, it's just hard to imagine.
Well, there's this sort of cleavage for you, and luckily, as you've pointed out, Laurie, there is a whole groundswell of people who are voting with their hands and their hearts to take in these people and to give them the best shot possible at rebuilding their lives. Yeah. And again, it's not talked about that much. Well, it is talked about, but every action counts. Every little bit helps to these totally desperate people that basically have their shirts on their backs and their little children on their backs as well. So imagine yourself being in that situation and how much you would be grateful of a country welcoming you and trying to help you make the best of it.
Yeah, very much so. Just imagine being in that situation.
Yeah. But I think it's part of a greater wave, and going back to, for example, the massacre in France, where so many people stood up and said, no, we have to make peace. We cannot be totally xenophobic against these people. And
we can't react with hatred. We have to react with love, and they did by the thousands. They marched and they said, we're not going to react with bombs.
Exactly.
And also closing these people out. It's not their fault.
So it does show us that there is a saner undercurrent here.
Yeah.
Laurie, we're closing into the end of our program. Let me just take a second here to welcome people to thank you, Laurie, first of all, for being with us and telling us about another grassroots place where the principle of sharing is taking hold. And I want to invite people to go to the Facebook page, Share on the Air Radio, and check out some of the goodies that we've talked about today. Next week, our show producer, Francis Ullman, will be interviewing a visionary theater artist, Marcia Kimmel. Now, Marcia is Jewish, and she has evolved her own view on the idea of a Messiah. Skeptical of the world being saved by a single person, she is aligned with Maitreya's call for humanity to create a transformed world together. That's next week. Marcia Kimmel with Francis Ullman, welcoming you to return then. Until then as well, have a really good week. Remember, sharing is divine.